processing some zucchini and some yellow squash. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I have a pot of boiling water over here on my stove. I've got a bowl with ice water and a slotted strainer to get the zucchini and the squash out of the boiling water. I have my cutting board, my knife. I've got 3 nice squashes, and I've got 3 large and 1 little zucchini. So first I'm going to be doing the squash, and I'm going to be dehydrating the squash in both slices and then also some cubes. I already have several slices. I have a couple of jars that are partially filled with the slices, so I'm going to finish filling those jars, but I'd also like some cubes just so that I can throw those into various dishes, and so I don't have just the slices. It gives me a little bit more versatility with how to use those. So my water is boiling, so I can go ahead and get started. Just going to cut the tops off and throw in my compost. And then what I want to do is just give these a nice even slice. So I'm just kind of using my finger to guide how thick I want these. I don't want them to get too thin, because then they're just going to be paper thin after they're done dehydrating. So I'm probably doing about, I don't know, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I'm horrible at measuring, so don't trust me on that. But as you can see, they're about that thick. Not too thin, but not terribly thick. I'm just going to do nice even slices. I'm going to work these in batches so that the sliced ones aren't sitting long before I get them blanched. So I'm just going to get enough to where I think it won't be too much in the pot. I don't like it to be too full. Just want it to be a manageable amount to work with. I think that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and put these over here in the boiling water. I'm going to use my little strainer thing here just to get them in there so I don't have any splashback and burn myself. My husband can attest that I'm very good at burning myself in the kitchen. It happens all the time. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this for 3 minutes. I'm going to turn this heat back up because the water seems to have, the boiling stopped. So we'll bring that back up to a boil. So I'm not cooking these. I just want the ripening process to stop. So they're just being blanched, and then once they're done being in the hot water for 3 minutes, I'm going to take them and put them into this bowl I have here that has ice water in it, and then that will stop the cooking process. So while those are doing their thing, I'm going to bring you back over here, and I'm going to keep on cutting. These ones I'm going to make a little bit thicker because I want to do some cubes. And this end is pretty thick, so cut this end off and throw that in my compost. So these squash and the zucchini, they came right out of my garden. I don't use any harmful pesticides or anything in my garden, so I'm not having to worry about any of that. It's all good, fresh, organic food because I grew it myself. slices have boiled for 3 minutes. You want to boil them for 3 to 4 minutes. Not any longer than that. I'm going to go ahead and take them out and put them straight into this ice water. Give these a swish around. Nice and cold. Stop that cooking process. And then my water is back up to boil. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cubes in. And let those come back up to boil. And then I'm going to start my timer. Okay. Now while those are processing, I'm going to go ahead and get my slices onto my drying rack. Just want to put them in a single layer with space in between them. Just enough space so that the air can circulate around. Don't want them crowded, so that'll just prolong your drying time. And I will mention that I did wash my hands before I got started, so my hands are clean, and the zucchini and the squash were also clean, so everything was clean before I started. Okay, there's one rack. Another one. Okay, set this aside. I'll go ahead and start making more slices. Now if you happen to get a slice a little thicker than the others or thinner than the others, it's not a big deal. They'll eventually all dry in the dehydrator. Now I don't can my zucchini or squash just because I know when I cook it, it gets, you know, pretty soft, can get mushy, and I would just think that canning would just decimate it, so I don't do it. I'm sure that there's many out there that do preserve your zucchini and squash that way. I have never tried that. Maybe one of these days I will, but for now I prefer to dehydrate it or freeze it. Okay, so now my cubes are done blanching. Get them out of here and into the cold water. Stop that cooking. Go. The water's at a good boil still, so we'll go ahead and get these slices in. Okay, this batch is done. Get them in the cold water. get this last one cut up and processed. Right. That one's processing. I'll go ahead and start cutting up a zucchini. Okay, get these out of here into the cold water. And we'll get these zucchini in here. Gonna separate them out before I put them in, so I don't have to pull them out and try to do it when they're hot. That's no fun. Okay, everyone in the pot. All right, that's the timer. Okay. Well, these have gotten cooled off. I'll go ahead and put the zucchini squares on here. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the inside of the squash has a green tinge to it, and I am not sure why it's done that. If you have any idea of why it did that, I'd be interested in hearing. So you just put a comment down below and let me know if you're familiar with that. I don't think I've ever seen it do that before, but I think in the past I might have just cut it and dehydrated it and not blanched it. So maybe it has something to do with the blanching process. I'm not sure, but if you know why, please comment below and let me know, because I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say about that. So I'm by no means an expert, and I'm just trying to figure all this out, as I'm sure many of you are too. So, okay, one more rack. Tray and put it over here on the pile. Okay, those look good. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know if you can see this. These didn't turn green like the squash did. So I wonder what that's all about. Okay. Turn this off. Now I do still have 2 large zucchinis and a little one, but I'm not going to be able to dehydrate those today because I am out of trays. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. I might save them and dehydrate them after this batch is done. And I think I might shred some of it as well and throw them in, measure them out and put them in freezer bags and use them for zucchini bread. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll make a fresh batch of zucchini bread and then freeze the rest so that throughout the year I can make more zucchini bread. Okay. I think this is cooled down enough. Go ahead and get these on the tray. See if I have room on the other trays to get all of it on. I want to try to leave some space. So the air can circulate. Okay. All right, Well, let's get these downstairs and in the dehydrator. Okay, well, all of the zucchini and squash are in the dehydrator, and you probably noticed that there were some trays of tomatoes in here. I got 4 trays of tomatoes in here. That's for, I'm processing those for a different video that I'm doing. I'll go ahead and link that video up here, one of the corners in the iCard. So I was making dehydrated tomatoes, and then I'll be showing different ways to use it after they're dehydrated. But we're going to go ahead and leave the zucchini and squash in the dehydrator. I have it set on about 135, and these will probably take a day, maybe 2, on some of those chunks to process. So we'll come back when those are all done processing. And okay, so first I'm going to put it in jars. So you see this is a jar that I had already started. This was from the last batch of yellow squash that I did. So I'm just going to take these off the tray. As you can see with this wire mesh, it makes it very easy to come off. Just get those down in there. Give it a shake. And try to fit in as many as we can. Okay, this one looks pretty good, so I'll go ahead and seal this one up. Here I'm just going to use a food saver attachment just to get all of the air out of the jar. That way it will last longer on my shelf. Got one of these little nifty food saver gadgets here. Works great with these. Just have to take off the attachment. Line this up with the hole in the top, get in there, good connection, and you'll listen for the change in sound. You hear that? Okay, let's test it. Yep. Now I'm going to pull this off. The lid should stay. It's bubbled on. It's got a nice tight seal. And now the oxygen has been removed out of this jar. So it will last for a very long time on your shelf or in your long-term food storage. Just put the ring on, and that's ready to go in. Now this next batch, looks like I have next rack, I have a few of the large ones, and then I have my pieces, so we'll get those put in. Now with the pieces, you can just throw these right into a soup or a stew, and they'll rehydrate nicely. Oh, it looks like I have some green ones in here. Looks like I have some zucchini and some squash on this one. So I'll pull off the zucchini. I'm not sure what that, I'll leave that one with the squash. Looks like the rest of this is squash. You can also throw the pieces, the dried pieces, into a blender and turn it into powder. And then that way you can just add it into different sauces or anywhere you want to add just a little bit of, a little more nutrition. Do you have anyone in your household that doesn't care for squash or zucchini? It's a good way to kind of sneak it in if that's what you want to do. So, okay, it looks like this yellow one is done. I don't have any more chunks. Smaller ones, this gasket has a habit of coming out when you pull it off. I've heard there was a trick to prevent that, but I didn't bring another, you need another lid, small lid, and you'd put it upside down on top of this one. At least that's what I saw online. I have not yet tried that, but next time I'll make sure I'll bring an extra lid so I can try that. Again, it's nice and sealed. Close this up. You can see these using these trays, these mesh, the mesh screens on top of the trays makes it very easy to get the food off. And as these smaller pieces shrink down, if I didn't have this mesh on here, they would just fall right through the holes in the tray. Okay, so here's the last of these, and I'll get these sealed up. Again, how can you use these? You can throw them into soups or stews. You can cook them in, maybe you're doing like a vegetable lasagna. You could easily layer these in with those, and they'll rehydrate with just the sauce that you're putting in there, and as they cook, it'll rehydrate. I did rehydrate one of the squash, and as you can see, it rehydrates very nicely. It's nice and pliable. You can boil this up and eat it like that, or you can put it into any dishes that you would want to use squash, and the zucchini will rehydrate the same way. I don't know if I would eat it raw like this, but you could. There's nothing that says you can't, but that is how you would use your squash and your dehydrated squash and zucchini. Okay, well, that's the end of today's video. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like button below. And if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon to make sure you get notified every time I put out a new video. And until next time, have an awesome day, and thank you for coming to my home. Bye now.